Jard's boots clanged against the cold, metal floor as he stumbled through the alien palace corridors. The air smelled faintly of ozone and honey, a strange combination that made his stomach twist with both awe and fear. He had been captured, or perhaps chosen by the alien queen herself, and now, for reasons he couldn't yet comprehend, he was standing in the heart of her throne room. The walls gleamed with shifting colors, like liquid glass, and enormous columns stretched upward, vanishing into darkness. Every step echoed like a drumbeat of judgment. At the center she waited, the alien queen. She was taller than any human he had ever seen, her black and gold armor reflecting the room's warm glow. Her red hair cascaded over her shoulders in waves, and her blue eyes, so piercing, so impossibly aware, locked onto his as if she could see straight into his bones. Jard swallowed hard, his throat dry. He had trained for combat, for danger, for the impossible. But this was something else, something beyond training. "You stand before me, human," she said, her voice a melody of authority and curiosity. "Few of your kind ever reach this chamber." Jard's mind raced. Every story he had heard about alien royalty painted them as either merciless tyrants or whimsical gods. And yet, here she was, studying him like an artist admiring a raw, unfinished sculpture. I don't understand why I'm here," he admitted, his voice shaking despite his efforts to sound steady. Her eyes softened, ever so slightly. "Because, Jard, you're the first of your species I have truly felt curiosity toward, and for that I offer you something rare." She gestured, and two crystalline pedestals appeared at her sides, glowing faintly. "3 wishes. Anything you desire within reason shall be yours." Jard's heart slammed in his chest. 3 wishes. He had read stories, legends, fantasies whispered in dusty libraries back on Earth, but never had he imagined it could be real, and offered by a being of such immense power. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The silence stretched, heavy and expectant. She tilted her head, and in that tilt, Jard felt a pulse, a rhythm, as if the palace itself were waiting with bated breath. The idea of a wish seemed almost trivial compared to the presence before him, yet the gravity of the offer pressed down like an invisible weight. Finally he spoke. I need to think," he said. Even as the words left his lips, a strange heat of courage rose inside him. He realized that whatever he wished, the moment he spoke it would ripple through both their worlds. The queen's lips curved into a slight, enigmatic smile. "You have until the moonlight reaches the chamber's center. Choose wisely, human, for some wishes cannot be unmade." As he turned to pace, he caught the flicker of something unusual, a faint scar running across her gauntleted hand, a mark of battles fought long before he existed. The sight stirred something deep inside him, admiration, fear, and an unfamiliar longing. This isn't just a queen. She's human enough to understand struggle. Jard's first wish formed in his mind, unbidden, and as he whispered it aloud, the entire palace seemed to pause. The queen's eyes widened, not in anger, not in shock, but in something that resembled awe. The silence that followed was so profound that it carried its own weight, and for the first time, Jard realized he had just changed everything. And in that moment, the palace, the queen, and even his own heart held their breath. The words had barely left Jard's lips when the chamber seemed to shiver. Light bent unnaturally around the queen, tracing the curves of her armor and catching the gems in her helm like stars. For a moment, the air itself held its breath. "I wish," Jard's voice was steadier now, though his heart hammered like a war drum. "I wish that no human, ever again, will be enslaved or harmed by any alien race." Silence, absolute silence. The queen blinked, slowly, her lips parted, and for the first time she seemed genuinely speechless. A sound like a low hum filled the chamber, vibrating through the walls, the columns, and even Jard's bones. He had expected her to smile, to dismiss him, to call it impossible, but she didn't. "Impossible," she whispered, almost to herself. And yet, her eyes locked on his, wider now, flickering with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. She paused, searching for words that didn't exist. "You just reshaped the rules of our worlds." Jard felt a strange warmth rising in him, but it was mixed with fear. He hadn't thought about consequences. He hadn't thought about the power he'd just wielded. And yet, he felt something else too, a spark of hope, a faint pulse that maybe, just maybe, he had done the right thing. Around the throne, the palace itself responded. Crystal panels shimmered with golden light, and holographic glyphs he couldn't read swirled in the air. For a brief second, he thought he could see glimpses of other planets, other civilizations, their chains shattering, their people rising in freedom. The queen's expression hardened, her gaze locking on him with intensity that made his chest ache. No human has ever dared such a wish. No human has ever cared so deeply for others they've never even met. She stepped closer, her armored boots silent on the metallic floor. The warmth of her presence was overwhelming, as if she carried the gravity of centuries in her being. You are reckless, human, bold, perhaps foolish, but also extraordinary. Jard swallowed. I didn't want to be heroic, he stopped, his voice caught. I couldn't stand by while my people suffered. Her hands, armored and imposing, hovered near him. For a heartbeat, it looked like she might strike, but instead she bowed her head, almost reverently. You've done what I never thought possible. You've made compassion a weapon more powerful than any fleet or army. The chamber's light shifted, settling into a calm glow, but the tension didn't ease. Jard sensed it like a pulse. The queen was not merely impressed, she was unsettled, perhaps even moved in a way she could not name. Then, unexpectedly, she spoke again, softer this time. Human, your heart is a threat to kings and queens alike. I must know, why does your species still cling to such weakness and beauty? Jard met her gaze. Because even in the worst of times, we still hope, and maybe that hope is stronger than fear. The queen's eyes glimmered, and for the first time she allowed herself a small smile, not of power but of recognition. Your wish has shaken the foundations of centuries, and yet the question remains, what will your second wish be? Jard's chest tightened. The first wish had been instinct, unthinking. The second carried intention, and he knew in his bones that whatever he chose next would bind their fates forever. Somewhere deep in the palace, a bell chimed. Not loud, not harsh, just a soft note that hinted at change. And Jard felt it in his soul, the game had just begun. The moment Jard opened his mouth to speak again, a sudden clatter echoed through the palace. From the shadowed archways emerged dozens of figures, alien nobles draped in iridescent fabrics and glimmering armor. Their eyes were sharp, assessing, suspicious. Whispers rippled through the chamber like wind through dry reeds. You dare speak wishes in my throne room, one of the nobles hissed, stepping forward. His voice was metallic, yet laced with venom. Do you understand what you've done? You, a human, have defied centuries of tradition. Jard's hand instinctively went to the hilt of the short blade at his side. His first wish had left him breathless and awed, but now fear crept in, heavy and insistent. He could feel their anger, their doubt. And yet, he also sensed the queen's presence behind him, a steady warmth, as though she were silently saying, I have your back. The queen rose from her throne, her towering figure casting long shadows across the room. Her voice was calm but absolute, carrying over the murmurs of the court. Enough, the nobles froze. Even the most defiant faltered under the weight of her gaze. This human is under my protection. His wishes are mine to honor and mine alone. One noble, braver, or perhaps more foolish than the rest stepped forward. Queen, can we trust him? One human, wielding such power, could unravel everything. Jard swallowed, feeling the gravity of their distrust pressing against him. I'm not here to destroy, he said quietly, though every word vibrated in the cavernous chamber. I just want to make things better. The queen's gaze softened, lingering on his face for a heartbeat longer than etiquette demanded. She lowered her hand slowly, as if allowing him to claim his own power. Then speak your second wish when ready, human, but know this, your choice will be observed by all. Even my court will witness it. Jard's mind raced. They're judging me, watching me, trusting me or not. What if I fail? The pressure was suffocating. He could feel their eyes on him like tiny knives. And yet in that moment, something unexpected happened. The queen stepped closer, tilting her head slightly. Do you hear it? She whispered, a tone of mischief threading through her regal authority. Jard frowned. Hear what? The heartbeat of this palace, she said softly. It responds to courage and to honesty. Stand true, human. That is all it requires. Jard looked around. For the first time, he saw the beauty beyond the walls of gold and crystal. The palace was alive. Light pulsed along the columns, tracing intricate symbols, almost like a language of energy. The courtier's anger seemed to soften, subtle waves of curiosity replacing suspicion. His lips parted, and the words came from a place deeper than thought. I wish to understand them, all of them. Not just humans, not just aliens, but every being, every heart, every story that has ever been silenced or ignored. I want the knowledge to heal what was broken. The chamber fell into a stunned silence. The court froze, the very air thick with awe. The queen's eyes widened, sparkling with a mixture of surprise and something softer, something like admiration and maybe even affection. Unbelievable, she murmured. You choose empathy over power, over wealth, over vengeance. No human, no being I have ever known, her voice trailed, emotion breaking through her regal composure. Jard's gaze met hers, and for a fleeting moment the distance between human and queen vanished. The warmth of her presence, the gravity of her attention, it was almost overwhelming. And somewhere deep inside, he realized that this connection, fragile and impossible, might be the most dangerous thing of all. A soft hum resonated through the palace, responding to his wish. It felt like the building itself was alive, like the walls were breathing, listening, ready to change. And somewhere in that breathless pause, Jard sensed it. The final wish would not be about himself. It would be about something or someone he had never imagined could matter this much. The palace had fallen into an eerie calm, but Jard sensed it was the quiet before a storm. The crystal columns that had pulsed with his second wish now shimmered faintly, reflecting anxious shadows. He barely had time to take a breath before a low rumble shook the floor beneath him. From the outer doors of the throne room, a dark haze slithered across the polished floor. Shapes emerged, tall, lithe figures cloaked in black, their faces obscured by masks that gleamed like obsidian. Courtiers gasped, stepping back. Even the queen's usually unflappable presence seemed to tighten, a small crease forming between her brows. Assassins, she said sharply, her voice a whipcrack in the silence. Sent by rival houses. They think my protection of a human weakens me. Jard's pulse surged. He had never faced this level of danger, not with aliens, not with royalty, not with the fragile hope of freedom hanging over him. Yet somehow, looking at her, the queen, poised, unflinching, he felt a flicker of courage he didn't know he possessed. Stay behind me, she commanded, drawing her sword. It was long, black with gold etchings, the gem in its hilt glowing faintly. And human, if you intend to interfere, do so with intent, not fear. Jard nodded, gripping his blade. Though smaller than hers, it felt heavier than ever before, charged with stakes far beyond mere survival. The first assassin lunged, swift and silent. Jard reacted instinctively, parrying the strike with a clang that echoed through the throne room. Sparks flew from the impact, and for a heartbeat, everything froze, the queen's eyes, his own heartbeat, the trembling walls. But it was no time to freeze. Another figure struck from the side, and he rolled, narrowly avoiding a deadly blade. His mind screamed with panic, yet he remembered her words. Stand true. Courage and honesty will carry you. The queen moved with a fluid, terrifying grace. Her sword sang through the air, parrying and striking with precision. Each movement was poetry and power intertwined. She glanced at Jard, and in that glance, he saw not just command but trust. She was daring him to rise beyond fear, to become more than a human caught in alien politics. Jard met the next attack with focus he didn't know he had. Each strike, each parry, made him aware of the strange rhythm of the palace itself, the crystal columns vibrating faintly as though urging him on. And through it all, the queen fought beside him, their movements almost synchronized, a silent conversation of trust, courage, and unspoken connection. Finally, after what felt like hours but could have been minutes, the last assassin fell, dissolving into smoke as if they had never existed. Jard sank to one knee, sweat running down his face, chest heaving. The queen lowered her sword slowly, approaching him. You fought well, she said softly, placing a gauntleted hand on his shoulder. Her touch was gentle but electrifying, grounding him, affirming him. You could have hidden, you could have run, but you stood your ground for more than yourself. Jard looked up into her eyes, and for a fleeting second, all the chaos faded. In that gaze, he saw something raw, admiration, respect, and something he couldn't name. It terrified him how much he wanted it to be more. You trusted me, he said, voice hoarse, even though I'm just me. She smiled faintly, almost shyly, though the steel in her voice remained. And yet human, it is you who changed everything today. Perhaps it is time to decide your final wish. Jard's heart pounded, the echo of the assassin's threat still ringing in his ears. He realized then, his last wish would not only define him, it would bind him to her, and perhaps to the fate of worlds he had only just begun to understand. And somewhere deep inside, a new emotion stirred, something terrifying, exhilarating, and utterly human. The palace was quiet now, but the calm was deceptive. Jard could feel it, a tension lingering like the sharp scent before a storm. The queen led him through a corridor lined with towering murals, depicting alien battles and human explorers he had never imagined. Every step echoed, each one a reminder that the final wish was more than words. It was a choice that would ripple through galaxies. "You must understand something, human," she said, her voice steady yet tinged with something unspoken. "The final wish, it will test more than your courage. It will test your heart, your soul. It may even force you to choose between what you want and what is right." Jard swallowed, nerves twisting in his stomach. "I'll try." The queen stopped before a massive archway carved with alien script that glimmered faintly under the palace lights. Beyond it, a chamber pulsed with energy. Shapes moved inside, shadows that shifted unpredictably. "This is the trial of choice," she explained. "Enter and face the reflection of your deepest desires and fears. Only then will you truly know what your final wish should be." Jard stepped forward, the air thick with anticipation. The moment he crossed the threshold, the room transformed. He was no longer in the palace, he was back on Earth, standing in a crowded street at night. Children ran past, laughing. Families huddled together. And yet in every shadow he saw pain, hunger, and suffering, images of humans and aliens alike, chained, ignored, forgot. A whisper echoed in his mind. "Choose, or all will remain broken." Suddenly, he was no longer alone. The queen appeared beside him, not in her armor, but as a vision of warmth, her eyes impossibly blue, her presence grounding him. "This is not about power, Jard," she said softly. "It is about what you value most. Your final wish will define your legacy." He looked around, heart aching at the suffering he saw mirrored across the vision. The instinct that had guided his first two wishes rose again, but now it demanded more. He could wish for glory, for dominion, even for her protection. But something deeper called to him: connection, understanding, and the courage to change lives without wielding control. Jard's gaze met the queen's. Her expression softened, a mix of trust, anticipation, and vulnerability. The weight of unspoken emotions hung in the air between them. He realized that whatever he wished next would bind them, not just as allies or protector and human, but in something neither fully understood. His chest tightened. I think I know," he said, voice trembling, "but I need to be certain." The vision around him shifted violently. Shadows became monstrous forms, threatening to overwhelm the light. The queen's voice cut through the chaos. "Face it, human. Only by confronting what scares you can you find your true desire." Jard's mind raced. The shadows were fear, doubt, and the weight of centuries of oppression. But beneath it all, he felt the same spark that had guided him since the first wish. The belief that compassion, courage, and empathy could defy even the impossible. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, raising his hands toward the shadows. "I wish." At that moment, the palace doors behind him thundered open, and a voice called his name. Not an enemy, not a courtier, but one that made his heart stop. It was hers. The shadows froze, the air hummed, and Jard knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that the words he would speak next would change everything, forever. Jard's breath came in shallow gasps as the shadows writhed around him, reflecting every fear, doubt, and what if he had ever carried. The chamber flickered, showing visions of countless worlds, chained and struggling, of humans and aliens suffering alike. But in the center of it all, he saw her, the queen, standing tall, unwavering, and watching him with those piercing blue eyes that seemed to see straight into his soul. He swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed caution. Every lesson in survival warned him to wish for safety, for power, for himself. But his heart, ragged and raw from everything he had already risked, demanded something far greater. "I wish," he began, voice trembling but strong, "that all beings, human and alien alike, can understand one another. To truly see each other, to share pain, joy, and hope, so that no one will be enslaved, hunted, or forgotten again. And that no matter what happens, we find a way to protect love and life together." The words rang out like a bell, pure and resonant, and the shadows shattered in an explosion of golden light. The visions of suffering rippled, then softened, replaced by scenes of laughter, reconciliation, and unity. Chains dissolved, wounds healed. Across countless worlds, hope sparked where there had only been despair. The queen stepped forward, her armor gleaming, her eyes wide with awe. You have done what no one in eons has dared to dream, she whispered, voice thick with emotion. Your heart, your courage, it surpasses even the greatest rulers of my people. Jard felt a warmth spread through him, more profound than any relief or triumph. And then he noticed it, the subtle shift in her stance, the way her hand brushed lightly against his, the almost imperceptible tremor in her voice. It wasn't just respect. It was something far deeper, something that matched the growing pull in his own chest. The palace itself seemed to hum with life. Crystals glowed brighter, columns shimmered, and even the distant murals seemed to ripple, as if acknowledging the change. The courtiers, once wary and hostile, now looked on with awe, their eyes reflecting understanding, fear replaced by reverence. The queen lowered her helm, letting her red hair fall freely over her shoulders. She stepped closer, so close that he could feel the warmth radiating from her, and spoke softly, almost shyly. Human, you have not only saved countless lives, you have changed the very soul of my world, and yet you have changed mine as well. Jard's voice caught. I didn't do it alone. You gave me the chance, you trusted me. A soft smile curved her lips. I trusted you because I saw what others could not see, the strength in your heart. And now, I wonder, human, will you stand by me, not as a visitor, not as a wishmaker, but as someone who walks beside me? He stepped forward, closing the space between them, feeling the weight of destiny, fear, and an unfamiliar, exhilarating hope. I will, he said, voice firm, eyes locked on hers. Every step. The palace pulsed once, like a heartbeat, as if acknowledging their bond. The air shimmered, alive with possibility, and Jard realized something profound. They had not just changed worlds, they had changed each other. And in that moment, amid the glittering light and awestruck court, the impossible became real. Human and alien, heart and soul, standing together, unbreakable. But even as relief and warmth washed over him, a subtle hum began at the edges of the palace, soft, yet insistent. Jard's gaze shifted, alert. The world had changed, yes, but the story was far from over. New challenges awaited, new threats would rise. And somewhere deep in that pulse, he knew one thing for certain. Together, they could face anything. The first light of the alien sun filtered through the crystal pillars of the palace, casting rainbows across the floor. Jard stood beside the queen, their armor gleaming in the warm glow, their hands brushing almost instinctively. For the first time since he had arrived, the palace felt less like a cage and more like a home for courage, hope, and something neither of them had expected. Love. Outside the throne room, news of his wishes had spread like wildfire. Courtiers whispered of the human who had dared to reshape centuries of tradition, a being whose heart was as vast as any ruler's mind. Across the planets, chains of oppression dissolved. Humans and aliens alike looked to the skies, feeling an unfamiliar but powerful pulse of unity. The queen turned to him, her blue eyes reflecting sunlight and gold. You have done more than I could have imagined, she said softly. Not only have you saved lives, but you have awakened something within all of us, empathy, trust, and courage. Even in my people, who have known power and fear for centuries, you have sparked hope. Jard swallowed, a lump in his throat. I just did what felt right, he admitted. I didn't think about glory or fear or even the risks, I just wanted to make a difference. She reached up, brushing a strand of his hair back with a gauntleted hand. The warmth of her touch lingered longer than etiquette or caution would allow. And that is why you are extraordinary, Jard. A human, capable of love and courage that even my kind rarely sees. You have changed worlds, yes, but you have changed me too. For a moment, silence settled over them. It was not awkward, it was profound, the kind of silence that exists only when something immense and beautiful has just happened. Jard felt a surge of emotion he could not name, pride, fear, hope, and something deeper, an undeniable pull toward her. You, he began, voice unsteady, you trust me, you believe in me. She smiled, a mixture of awe and tenderness. More than you know, and if you will stand with me, not as a visitor, not as a stranger, but as my equal, I believe we can shape not only worlds but hearts. Jard stepped closer, closing the space between them until their foreheads almost touched. Then I will. Every step, every challenge together. The palace itself seemed to pulse in agreement, the light brightening, the air shimmering, as if celebrating their unity. Outside, alien and human worlds alike shifted subtly, the impact of his wishes tangible in every liberated city, in every freed soul. A soft breeze stirred, carrying the scent of alien blooms and earth rain. It felt like the promise of a new era, fragile yet unstoppable. Jard glanced at the queen, her armor catching the sun in a dazzling display of gold and black, and realized that for the first time, he wasn't afraid of the unknown. He had faced the impossible, defied expectations, and chosen compassion over power. And now, standing beside the queen, he understood something that went beyond all worlds, all empires, all wishes. True strength is measured not by dominance, but by the courage to care. With the palace gates open, the light pouring in, and the future stretching endlessly before them, Jard and the queen stepped forward together. Hand in hand, they faced a galaxy transformed, not by fear, not by conquest, but by a human heart brave enough to dream. And in that moment, nothing seemed impossible.